Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you the ink swiping technique, and I'm also going to be doing some layering. Also, I messed up a panel and I want to show you how I actually fixed that and made a beautiful card with it. I'm using the Waffle Flower Plaid Play stamp set. It's just a stamp set filled with different solid lines. It's one of my favorites. You can use it to build plaid backgrounds, different patterns. It really is a great stamp set to have on hand. Now I'm putting mine on an acrylic block. It's not quite long enough, so I did put it on there diagonally. That's a great way to get the most use out of your acrylic blocks if you don't have one long enough. And then I've got my rainbow of inks. You want to use an ink pad that is dye based. You also want to make sure you're not using the foam ink pads. So you want that kind of felt ink pad for this technique. Now, most of the time when you're inking up a stamp, you're pouncing it up and down to cover the stamp with ink. For this technique, you actually want to put your ink pad on the stamp and swipe it across. This is going to give you that swiping texture in there. You want those lines, you want that texture. Also, on this, whenever I got towards the edge of the stamp, towards the end of it, I lifted away my ink pad and left this kind of paintbrush stroke look on the end of it. That is what I decided to go with on the end of mine. If you don't like that, you could always do this all the way across and do a solid ink swiped line, but I wanted to go with that paintbrush stroke end on the end of it, so that's what I did. Now I'm using my rainbow of colors here. I started off with red and then I stamped purple on the very bottom. That's just the easiest way for me to kind of space these out. Start with my first and last color of my rainbow, and then I go in and fill this in with the center. Next, I'm going to pick up my orange ink pad, and again, I'm going to swipe straight across that stamp. So I place the ink pad onto the stamp and swipe across. When I get towards the end of it, you just lift it up and away from the stamp, and there you've got that paintbrush stroke on the end of it. It's such a cool technique. It gives this great texture. I did the same exact thing for my yellow ink, and then I picked up my green ink. I got a little confused with my rainbow. I had a little bit of a brain fart there while I was making my card. I don't know what happened. Probably, who knows? Who knows in my house? But anyway, I went ahead and stamped down this green ink. And then I realized what I had done. I hadn't, spaced this the right way that I wanted to on this card. So I decided to just set this aside for now and I started over. I do that a lot on my cards. I mess up all the time, but the majority of the time I do not throw my mistake panels away unless they're like completely like I've dropped black paint on it or something, you know what I mean? So most of the time I can come back and fix them later on. So I set that aside and I started over. For this panel, I'm using a 4" by 5¼ white cardstock panel, same as before. I have added a piece of fun foam behind this to stamp on top of. That's going to give me a better stamped image. You could see before it was a little splotchy. This gives you a better stamped image when you're stamping these solid images on top of it. If you don't have fun foam, you can use a notebook, a mouse pad, a magazine, anything with a little bit of give. So I started off with that largest, thickest stripe, and I stamped all of my colors in my rainbow, spacing them out evenly. I'm also making sure that not all of these are the same exact length. So I want different lengths of this on the paper. I want this to end up looking like somebody took a paintbrush and just swiped the paintbrush across from it. Now to fill in all this white space, I'm coming back in with different widths of the stripes in that stamp set. That's why this is a great one to have, because it has so many different widths in it. You can just pick out whichever one fits. This is also where you're going to start layering up those inks on top of each other and kind of overlapping them. That's going to create this really almost mid color in between the two. Since you're using these dye inks, they'll almost mix a little bit, and they'll have this really seamless blend between the two. And also it's a really cool look once you get done with it. Now these kind of mix together like I said, so you want to overlap them and you want to make sure you're using the right width. So for that, in between the green and the yellow, I actually went up a size, and then I dropped it back down, and I'm going to continue. I'm using that same stamp swiping technique. So place the ink pad down, swipe it across your stamp, and then pull up when you get towards the end. That's going to give, again, that paintbrush look. I'm going to stamp my last stamp here, which is my purple overlapping with the blue and the purple beforehand. And that is the panel. It is so cool when this thing dries. I kept walking back into my craft room because it takes me a little while, normally several sessions, to finish cards. There's my test piece, but I would walk back in and I'd be like, oh my gosh, that ink is wet. What is going on with it? It looks like it is wet on the paper, but it's dry. It's a dye ink. It's soaked into the paper. It is such a cool technique. The pictures don't do it justice. Now to finish off this card, I'm actually going to cut a frame just by inlaying two rectangle dies into each other. I tape them together because I am going to cut 3 of these and then stack them up to create a chipboard effect. So I tape them together with some masking tape. Just whenever you're pulling these off, just make sure you don't mess up the tape on the front. They'll stay together and you can cut as many as you need to. So I cut 3 of those from craft cardstock. I cut a happy word die from black cardstock as well. And then I'm going to place these down onto my panel here that I'm using horizontally. I did layer these up, like I said, 3 each. And then that happy is going to fit right into that frame. It's almost going to look connected once I get finished with it. I made sure to measure that out, made sure I used the right rectangle dies so it all looked interconnected and like one piece, but it really is 2 separate pieces, and it's a lot easier to do this way. There's a closer look at that inlaid into the little frame. I've got the nice chipboard effect since I layered it up. It's just a really fun card. Now with that die is this stamp set, and I'll go ahead and peel off birthday, which goes with the word happy. I stamped that on white cardstock. I put a little fun foam on the back of that, and I'm going to pop that up and just place that right over the last little bit of the word happy at an angle, and that completely finished off that card. All that was left to do was pop it on an A2 side folding card base, and that card was done. I love the way this turned out. It is such a cool technique to use. It's really fun. You can use whatever color combination you want, and you're still going to get that wet look with it. Now for this panel, I ended up finishing it out. I just left that space right in the middle. I left it white, used that same happy stamp set, stamped Be Happy in it, and then I took the Concord and Ninth Hello Wonderful or Hello Lovely. I used that big flower, stamped that with some VersaFine Clear black ink over the top on the top and the bottom of the panel, and that card was so simple to finish off. Once I just let it sit, even my mistake panel I was able to turn into the card, and love the way it turned out as well. If you have any questions about the supplies I used on my cards today, they are always linked in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching today. There are going to be links on the left side of your screen you can click on. If you're not subscribed to my channel already, you can do that over there as well. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up down below. Thanks for watching and happy crafting.